We have an agreement with a couple of family offices to deploy eventually $200 million of their capital to acquire our own compute. The whole crypto market is going down and utilities are going down. Then we will keep having buybacks of the token every day, not by the community, but by the company itself, because the company uses 95% of the revenue to buy the token back and to distribute it back to GPU providers and to stakers. I think that's the most important and most interesting utility that we have, because it makes sort of a bear market proof token in some way.
Hello and welcome, and we're here at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Constantin Kogan, and I'm excited to have an amazing guest today, the CEO and co-founder of Planck, Diam Hamstra. Hi, Diam. Really good to see you.
Hey man, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing great, and we're gonna talk about cloud, how you build a product that is disrupting with the revolution, the layer zero and blockchain. But traditionally, we're gonna throw a legal disclaimer first that this content is from informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or any other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, and other advice. Look, you've been doing a lot of different businesses before, and you're very young, obviously successful. So tell us really briefly who is DM Hamster first.
Yeah, well, thank you. Let me quickly explain. So I started in the blockchain space around 6 years ago. So I started with my university friends to build a real estate investment platform on blockchain. So now, fast forward 5 years later, 5 6 years later, we finally launched, or that company finally launched. We launched on Crack and on all kinds of exchanges, and it looks like it's finally getting shape. So I left the project 3 years ago because it was a very regulated landscape, which is on itself not a bad thing. But as a young founder without really experience in the financial space, you are, walking towards problems constantly. So I left the project initially, and I started to build something that is, well, less regulated, but more like tech focused, which Aesthetics is also the other company that I've founded, but it's just 90% of the work is like legal and licensing and stuff. But that gave me the experience in building a regulated product, understanding what you need to build a product that is regulated, which is always handy, and of course building a community, raising funding, and just the nitty gritty of blockchain and crypto.
Yeah. Now let's jump into Planck right now. So directly, you're claiming a very bold statement, like in your first explanation of what is Planck, the first world layer zero for AI. What makes it the first world layer zero for AI, and what actual primitives justify the whole new layer?
Yeah, so it's really the backbone for other compute deepins and AI native chains as a layer one to build on top of our layer zero. So from layer zero, you know that you get like the security and all kinds of benefits from the layer zero architecture that is under it. But why we really build it and what really makes it a great benefit for other layer ones and other compute deepins is that compute is not isolated anymore. So within the ecosystem, compute is not isolated anymore. So we needed to build like a layer zero architecture that allows compute to not be isolated anymore, but to flow into different layer ones, which is not only good for the projects because they can attract compute within seconds, like interoperability, but also for the compute suppliers, which is, they want to go wherever the demand is. And if they're locked into a layer one ecosystem and they cannot easily move it, whenever there's demand on another ecosystem, then they feel left out. And I don't disagree with them. They want to go wherever the demand is. So that's, I think, why also liquidity and interoperability became such a narrative some time ago, because liquidity wants to move where the liquidity needs to go. So we did the same for compute with our layer zero, with our libraries and SDKs. Compute can flow wherever the demand is within seconds in our ecosystem, but you need to be in our ecosystem, in our layer zero ecosystem.
Now, if we go specifically to layer zero of like for AI, like someone can perceive it as a buzzword only to attract capital. Like what does it actually solve something like in ways that layer one and layer two fundamentally can't?
Yeah, so if you are building an ecosystem that is focused on, let's say, AI, but you also have another ecosystem that is building outside of AI, but still needs high performance compute, then you have two different layer ones that cannot really share the compute with each other because they're not in the same ecosystem. So what do you need to do? What we figured out is we as Planck, we are basically also an application specific layer one. If we wanted to share compute with IO.net, which we tried, we needed to build custom solutions together with our tech teams, which is quite difficult because you need to understand, first of all, what kind of tech stack is the other one built on. Then you need to iterate on that. You need to, together with the teams, build a custom solution to then share compute with each other. So that is something that you don't only see between projects, but also see between different data sets that want to deploy onto a layer one ecosystem, because they see that some data centers using different infrastructure. So it's really hard to build like one custom solution or one solution for every data center to onboard this compute. So that was really why we thought like, okay, we figured this out on two different ways. With IO.net, we saw it. We need to build like custom solutions to onboard compute from their ecosystem to our ecosystem. But also when we try to onboard different data sets, we saw like shit. This is not really working out the same way it did with the other data center. So then building like one SDK, one library really solves that problem. And that's why we thought, okay, let's build a layer zero where other ecosystems can build on top of our ecosystem, while still being a customized layer one. And then we can just share compute with each other instantly. And that's what's currently the real problem in Deepin. Like it's very isolated. Every ecosystem is currently an isolated ecosystem with compute that is also isolated. So that was why we really wanted to build like a layer zero solution, to build an ecosystem that can support this compute interoperability.
You want to unite the compute, which is a very ambitious goal. And overall, if we talk about decentralized AI, it has been long a very ambitious narrative, but yet it feels like it's more like historically more fragmented and like underpowered for various reasons. In your opinion, what breakthrough or catalyst makes now is the right time to build it?
Well, we see that compute suppliers that we talk to, and we talk to a lot of them, and especially in the Web3 space. In the Web2 space, it's more like, okay, you can make, you just need to have the partnerships, and then they don't really go somewhere else easily. But you see in Web3 that compute suppliers are just chasing the demand very heavily. So if they even cannot really get like USD or any other fiat, then they will just go for the rewards in different ecosystems. So we think it's currently really needed to push Deepin further, to not keep it like just a buzzword, because I also think that Deepin is still a buzzword. And to really overcome that and make sure that compute stays in the Web3 ecosystem and doesn't leave it, we think we need to find like a unified ecosystem, where we need to build a unified ecosystem where compute stays in because it meets demand constantly without having to build, without having to make custom solutions or wait weeks before they can finally move from one ecosystem to another, and then the demand is already gone there or is lower than it was. So you want to catch the demand where instantly, whenever the opportunity is there, and that is what's going to be possible inside our layer zero ecosystem.
Hmm. And
So to push deep in further, we need to start with this right now. Otherwise, compute suppliers will think that that's just a big joke, and that is not rewarding enough.
understandable. And you've mentioned that you're deployed or committed over $230 million in GPU infrastructure, right? So how do you plan to compete with, hyperscalers like AWS, Google, Azure? Because even decentralized players like Akash or IO.net, like they had a rough start. So like maybe you can help us to understand this part.
Yeah. So yes, we have not exactly $230 million in hardware currently deployed, but we have an agreement with a couple family offices to deploy eventually $200 million of their capital to acquire our own compute. Because right now we need to share. So we're not talking about layer zero right now. We're talking about our layer one, which is called Planck one. which has two different products, the AI Cloud and the AI Studio. And those products currently, the AI Cloud and the AI Studio, together with the layer one, have more than $60 million worth of compute right now deployed. Then the 200 million, the 230 million you're currently referring to, that is to acquire our own compute so that we don't have to share the revenue with compute providers eventually. But that's something for in the future. It's already committed, but it's not yet executed. To come back on your question was how are we going to compete with hyperscalers? Well, it's very simple. So I don't want to talk other projects down right now, but you see in the deepen space very often that products are saying that they are a cloud, but they are basically just a component of a cloud, which is a marketplace. So you see that all these players currently in the deepen space, for the majority of it, are just marketplaces where you find like a list of GPUs, you pick a GPU, and you get like bare metal access to the GPU. Well, we found out very quickly because my co-founder also worked at Google Cloud, so he knows what kind of features you need to deploy onto the GPU, and then the marketplace becomes a component like all the other features that you have. So what we are right now doing to try to compete with hyperscalers, which is still very, very hard, but you need to find the right niche, is we're currently completely making sure that we have all the features that projects are already using actively on Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure, and making sure that it is a part of our cloud. So not just the marketplace, but also elastic scaling, load balancing, RBAC systems. We have tons of features that are currently being rolled out to make sure that we can actually actively uh, try to get these clients from the Amazon Web Services to our cloud, because they will find the features that they are used to. So that is the first step, and which I would encourage every competitor of us to take, is try to first build the features that they're already actively using before yelling to them that you're 90% more affordable, because that's just not going to attract them as a long-term client.
On the one hand, it's a brilliant explanation. On the other hand, one might ask you also, like, why there's a need of two chains instead of one modular one? Like, does it add like complexity and centralization risk?
So Planck 1 is our own application-specific blockchain that works completely how we want it to work. So it's not like you can launch tokens on it or smart contracts. That's all turned off. So it's disabled. It's a chain that is for Planck's use case. So only enterprise-grade GPUs are deployed on it, because we currently only work with data centers, minimum tier 3 or tier 4, which is, by the way, the highest tier in the data center space. So this chain is only for us. It just makes sure that we can onboard data centers very quickly with one custom solution. And then the layer zero is more tailored towards the Web3 space. So where we try to help deepen go further. But with our own layer one chain, we don't try to help deepen go further, because it's our own application specific chain, which is not meant for other people to use except for onboarding data centers.
Interesting. And you mentioned that there's before in your interviews that 90% like can have a cost savings on GPU jobs, right? So what's the catch here? Like, where does the margin compression fall into? Like, are you talking about operators, token holders, and users?
So if we're mentioning that we are 60 to 90% more affordable in terms of GPU usage per hour or long-term contracts, then of course it's really tailored, or that message sits towards AI clients and high-performance compute clients, because crypto retail investors or enthusiasts are never going to use enterprise-grade GPU, because we don't offer low-tier GPUs, only the highest class of GPUs. So if I answer your question here correctly, that is really towards AI clients and high performance compute clients. And we do that through different techniques. So the most important one is we use a technique that increases the utilization of the GPU. So together with technology that we developed, we increase the utilization rate of the GPU very extensively. But I don't think that was your question, so I just followed up on that.
Or like where like every time you reduce the cost of anything, right? So you have to cut down like some intermediaries, like someone, right? So that's the nature of the question. Who is that? Who is out of the picture that they can reduce the cost for 60 to 90%?
Yeah, that is again what I just said. The utilization rate, increasing the utilization rate. So currently, this is going a little bit deep maybe, but generally 10 to 20% of the GPU gets actively utilized when you're using it on Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or any other GPU provider. So if you increase those utilization rates via, for example, hot swapping, but this goes a little bit more technical, then you can increase the rate already to 40% plus. So that's already like a times 2 or times 3 times 4 on what you are normally achieving on Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. So with AI training, you mostly achieve 100%. But then if you go to inferencing, so you go a step further, you train your model and you go to AI inferencing, then it's already going lower to like 10 to 20%. So that is one of the techniques that we're using. So yeah, I can go further into what other techniques we're.
I think for now, on a high level, we're good, and anyone will provide links to the deeper dive into it. But it was good just to understand, like, on a high level. And you also mentioned that your cloud supports like schedule of and bare metal compute USDC, right? So in this case, like if you already provide the stablecoin integration, you can use it. Like, why maintain a native token?
So I don't think you really. Let me explain. This tunnel that we're calling it is just our bridge. It makes sure that our layer one is connected to other ecosystems, so our token can flow freely towards other ecosystems. And there's a USDC rails built into because of our partnership with that particular bridge operator. So that is a partnership that they achieved, but it has nothing to do with our native token. That's not nothing to do with how our token functions in our ecosystem. It's not that we have USDC completely into our ecosystem. No, that's our native token. It just the USDC rails is just built into the bridge. So
No, that is clear. Maybe let me rephrase the question. So why not use overall, like just fiat payment gateways and USDC, as opposed to like why do you need your token? Maybe that's a better question, right?
yeah, yeah, got it. So, well, that is not possible with our. Of course, it maybe if you dive deep, it can be possible, but paying gas fees and orchestration fees and app bundling fees on the layer zero, it's not possible. It's not going to be possible to do that completely in USDT or USDC. You need to have a native coin, actually, you call that, on the layer one and the layer zero. Then for our AI cloud and our AI studio, yes, it's possible because we already charge people and our clients in fiat, not even in USDC or USDT, because we're targeting Web 2. So they're more comfortable with paying with their credit card and just paying fiat. But the overall vision that we have was eventually the technology is going to be ready, just the state of the technology in the whole world is going to be ready to not only onboard enterprise grade GPUs, but also retail grade GPUs. And then you are going to get a problem where, okay, you want to distribute rewards to all kinds of parts of the world because everybody has a different GPU and they're onboarding it on the network, and you want to distribute these rewards to all kinds of parts in the world. And how are you going to do that with fiat? You need to set up a bank account. You need to set up an a bank account in all kinds of jurisdictions, and then need to pay these people. But right now, the technology is not really ready for that yet. That's what we found out, but that's actually not how we started. We started with an application that allowed people all over the world on retail grade GPUs to onboard their compute on our network. But just eventually we found out the technology is not yet ready to onboard this compute onto the network. So our token really needs to function either way into our network because our layer one and our layer zero requires this token to be in the middle of our ecosystem. That's not going to be possible with fiat or USDC or USDT.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about the other utilities, right? So your model blends like GPU staking, liquid staking, like buybacks, different any other provisions that will help you to kind of bring like a more organic buying pressure. Because if you think about it, like just to give you background, what a lot of the investors, especially early stage supporters, right? They want to know whether like your tokenomics are solid, it's balanced, and you know how to navigate between the buying and selling pressure. And eventually, like, their early usage is always challenging, right? So to drive a lot of traffic. So you should somehow think through many other utilities for your token to make sure that people are comfortable and they understand what you're built and thought through?
Yeah, so we have around 15 token utilities, I guess, with the layer 0 and the layer 1, which goes from token gated features to cross-chain settlement, the buyback mechanism, 3 different staking models. Then you have validated staking eventually on the layer 0. You have, yeah, you have a lot because the layer 0 on itself already brings a lot of extra token utilities besides the standard token utilities that you have on the layer 1, right? So we have quite a lot, but I think the most interesting one is just the buyback flow because when the whole crypto market is going into a bear cycle again, which will come very very quickly, then the AI market will not, and the cloud computing market will not. Companies will still build and will keep growing. Eventually, the AI sector they will keep growing even in the bear cycle. So even in the bear cycle, when we are growing as a company and the whole crypto market is going down and utilities are going down, then we will keep having buybacks of the token every day, not by the community but by the company itself, because the company uses 95% of the revenue to buy the token back and to distribute it back to GPU providers and to stakers. So I think that's the most important and most interesting utility that we have because it makes sort of a bear market proof token in some way.
Yeah, I love the bear market proof token. That's I think one of the best that people can think through. And overall, in your opinion, right now, like so you were talking about also like revenue-based buybacks, right? So, and they sound incredible, but how sustainable if this GPU demand is cyclical or let's say cannibalized by other AI networks?
Yeah, I mean that's always the problem. You will have competitors, and then I think it's a great thing that our especially our GPU section of our company of our technology is more focused towards Web 2. So we don't have to fight with other. We don't even want to fight with other Web 3 competitors that we certainly have, but we are just focusing a lot more on our Web 2 go-to-market strategy. So we are really competing with other companies in the Web 2 space, and yeah, that's fine. But of course, that is going to affect. Um, Cash flows in in every company. If you have a competitor that's taking market of you, yeah, then you need to do something to get that market back. Otherwise, you're losing that cash flow. So, yeah, I don't know if you want me to go specific into that, but I think that's just standard for every business in the world.
I think it's an honest answer and it doesn't require more details. So as long as as long as you're honest with yourself and you understand clearly where your competitor stands. So, um, now you're talking about like also the capitalization of the company right before. So you raised, from what I understand, lately 3.5 million, right, to the total, and then you have about 4 million committed via stake in of token sales, right? Are you building an AI infra like network or more focusing on selling like GPU like ETF type of product?
No, we're really building a network and infrastructure. So we're really building a cloud computing infrastructure instead of reselling GPUs. So to be very honest, just to be transparent, we have multiple revenue models that I'm not going to dive very deep into right now. But there are 2 different revenue models that stand out a little bit here in terms of questions. So one is on demand. So people rent these GPUs on our platform. But we also have other revenue streams that we already made quite some revenue with, and that's just being a middleman. We have a lot of GPU providers and we have a lot of clients, and some of these clients want very specific GPU providers. Let's say we have a GPU provider currently in America that is so regulated, so they are able to serve publicly traded companies. These publicly traded companies, they need to go to their board with justifications like, okay, it's more affordable, but also it's completely safe to use them for our data, and to justify to the world that we are stepping over from a trusted partner like Amazon to a less known partner like XYZ. So that is very important for us as well to just become a middleman to make sure that we can sometimes also say to our clients like, we are not the fit here. Our platform is not the fit. We're going to redirect you to one of our partners and we're going to broker a long-term a contract for you. So yes, we that's not really tokenizing GPUs or reselling them or any of that, but it's still off platform, if you could say it like that.
So the company is already profitable. That's what you're saying also.
Yeah, yeah, the company is already profitable since January, while we are not even on mainnet yet.
That's impressive. That's already a good sign. So you're a real business and building like like on top of like the real business, which is not always the case, unfortunately, in crypto companies, right? So, um, there is one question that I want to ask you, like, which is more, I would say, ethical, which bothers a lot of people right now. With decentralized AI growth, like there's a exciting excitement, but there's also a little bit of fear with use cases like deepfakes and autonomous agents that are, trying to scam people. So how would you work with this and how would you prevent, these use cases?
Yeah, it is. So I don't want to say that we are completely centralized in this, but we do need to take a look at companies that are building on our cloud computing platform, because we also, I mentioned to you, we don't work with retail grade GPU providers right now, because we know that the internet connection, like IONET is currently doing that, and a lot of other projects are doing that. They're focusing really on retail grade GPUs. And in that sense, you can not do exactly whatever you want, but you are working with a provider that really doesn't care, probably. But also, in our case, it just doesn't work right now with the business that we serve. The internet connection is not good enough. The performance and quality is not good enough to offer. But the providers that we work with, they're licensed data centers. They have certifications that we will need to ask, or ask it at least a little bit, like, what are you going to do on our network? And that's currently as far as we go. So unless regulations are going to allow us to even be more complex with onboarding projects, we are definitely, of course, looking into what is the company doing, what are you building, why are you doing it like this, to make sure that we are still sort of compliant towards the providers that we work with. Otherwise, we're just going to lose them. We cannot just be it cannot be the Wild West for us, and compromising the position of our compute providers.
So is it fair to say that it's decentralized for the retail users, but in a way for B2B clients, bigger clients, it's more centralized approach?
Yeah, and then with our layer zero, we are not we are just providing the protocol for it. So the layer ones need to do their own DD or whatever they're going to do. But we are just with the layer zero, we are just the protocol, the backbone protocol. For the rest, it's completely decentralized. So the compute doesn't come from us. The compute comes from compute providers. The projects don't come from us. The layer ones don't come from us. It's all in their hands. But with our own product, yeah, we want to make this a very yeah, we want to make this a Web 2 serious player, so we will need to comply with some stuff that you're not used to in Web 3, maybe.
And you've touched another important question, which is regulatory and compliance stance, right? So, in the U.S., we have now, I would say, a great leader in charge, David Sachs, who's working very hard with the teams to build proper framework, and I think it's very favorable towards AI and crypto. Now, what would be curious also, how would you navigate your project across, jurisdictions? Because you're building a global product, obviously. So, like, how do you make sure that you're compliant in every single country? I know you're in Netherlands, right? So, or you can talk about the EU a little bit and maybe other plans to capture territories, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a very great question. And right now, our target market is mostly in the EU and in the United States and Canada. And while there is not really a 100% clarity on the legal frameworks there, which is coming, and that's only good. But we just comply with both of the jurisdictions right now. So we are very close in submitting our white paper to comply with the MiGA regulation in Europe, and the same we're doing in the United States as well. So we just make sure that we are compliant in both jurisdictions. But this is only for crypto, so this is very crypto focused. And in the rest of the world, we are open to complying with any regulations, but there needs to be at least a clear regulation path for us. Yeah. We had it for a very long time in Europe as well, that Mika was not yet active. It was coming, but it was sort of a gray area. Like, okay, what should we do? Should we contact the financial regulator? Well, there's nobody to contact yet, so we're just waiting on other jurisdictions. But while our target market is in the US and the EU, we can do whatever we can to comply with the regulations there.
Perfect. Yeah. And fast forward 3 years, like, what's the single metric or milestone that you would make say Planck has succeeded in reshaping the AI?
So that is very easy for me to say. So we got an 200 million commitment from several different family offices that think data centers are a very safe bet for them, which is understandable. While they were not too keen on the token and on the crypto aspect, they know that a data center is solid. It's like buying real estate. Of course, the GPUs get outdated, but they're building or they're buying into the infrastructure. So that commitment is not yet on our bank account. So we have 200 million on our bank account. We need to achieve a couple milestones to get to that point where they're going to release the first tranche to first co-host the location together with other data centers, and then eventually buy into our own infrastructure to have our own compute. So I would say if in 3 years we at least have our own compute, so not only compute from our providers, but also compute in our own hands that is owned by Planck and its investors, then I would say that we really came very far. And it doesn't really mean that we impacted the AI space a lot, but it means that we convinced a lot of uh, a lot of smart people in believing in us to acquire our own compute, and I think that says a lot.
Tremendous. So what keeps you up at night lately? Like, is this a scaling issue, governance risk, legal and compliance matters, or something else?
Um, Nah, yeah, it's every day a new. Every day that I wake up, I check the news first to see if something crazy happened in the U.S. politics again that drove the crypto market on its ass again. So that's really the thing that keeps me worried at night. But yeah, you can also say like, yeah, just let it go, go with the flow because you can never do anything about it. If Trump wakes up and he thinks like, yeah, let's do this, then yeah, n- nobody can do anything about it. But I'm sure you will have the same thing sometimes.
Of course, as we all are. And I have a one bonus question that I always tend to ask, because as you well aware, like our show name's Holistic Investments. So I want to ask you, DM, like on a personal level, what is the meaning of life to you?
What is the meaning of life to me? I need to wake up every day and feel that I still have a purpose. And well, that's a very great example. When the time that I was at a StateX, there was a financial regulator that eventually told us, like, "Hey guys, what you're doing is really great. What you're trying to build is really great. I see a future into this, but you guys are 21 years old, and you need to have at least like 20 years of experience in the financial industry to get the necessary licensing that require your business to be operational." Well, immediately the night after that, I thought like, Fuck, I don't have any purpose anymore. This is never going to work." Well, you can also think like, let's keep going, what the other founders did, and eventually they made it work. But for me, that was a point that I thought like, okay, this is not good for me anymore. So really waking up every morning and still having that sense of purpose is really important for me. Otherwise, I really don't have a meaning in my life.
Perfect. Really excited about what you're building, Dan. Like I wish you personally, like your not only success, but also like more strength in and more resilience. Because I understand like you're very young and already impressively successful, and you're building like you're going and raising funds. You have your vision, and you have the team to implement it. So yeah, probably just like go as fast as you can, but also like, to have people around you who will support you and also like help to execute this mission.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.